Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, they've been very clear that they've wanted to add a quarterback to this roster heading into 2025. Now, for a second, they had one in former Charlotte quarterback Deshaun Purdy. It sounded like once Deshaun Purdy found out he wasn't going to be the starting guy in 2025, he decided to leave the program. Now he's going to go play for Wake Forest. And, Billy Napier in Florida kind of pivoting to some other quarterback two options. And the name that seems to be getting the most traction is former Louisville, former UNLV, and former Tennessee quarterback Harrison Bailey. Now, from my understanding, they had some staff that went up and watched Harrison Bailey work out. They liked what they saw, brought him for an official visit this weekend, and things sound like they're going in the right direction. And, we talked about this briefly. I've been reading Twitter, been reading the message boards, and there are some Florida fans that don't like it. And I'll probably just respectfully push back on it and say that I think this makes a lot of sense for Florida going into 2025 and arguably makes more sense than Deshaun Purdy. Now, why Deshaun Purdy made sense is he's a young quarterback that could take over this Florida offense once DJ Lagway goes to the NFL draft, but that's 24 months down the line at the very least. What Deshaun Purdy did not offer to Florida, which I think Harrison Bailey certainly does, is a lot of experience and being around the landscape of college football for a very long time, right? This was a former top 100 prospect in the 2020 recruiting class. He spent time at Tennessee, spent time at UNLV. He spent the last 2 years at Louisville. To me, you could even make the argument that this is a better option as a backup quarterback than a guy like Deshaun Purdy, because Harrison Bailey, he might not be the most gifted football player and hasn't necessarily put it together during his, I shouldn't say he's not a gifted football player. He's a top 100 prospect for a reason. It hasn't necessarily shown that he's an elite quarterback at the collegiate level. We talk about bringing a guy in that not only can be a serviceable quarterback too, that can come in and move the football if you need him to, but just as importantly, being the best fit for a guy like DJ Lagway. Look, DJ Lagway, as much as we all love DJ Lagway, he's only going into year two. I mean, what better guy to put in this quarterback room for DJ Lagway's development than Harrison Bailey, who's going into his sixth year of college football? That to me makes a little bit more sense than Deshaun Purdy, who's only going into year two as well. And so there are some reasons that Harrison Bailey makes a lot of sense. I want to do two different things. Number one, I want to dive into Harrison Bailey a little bit. And then I want to talk about are the Florida Gators a top 10 team going into 2025? And many of y'all saw my top 25 that we released yesterday afternoon, had them in the top 10. On3 releases their way too early rankings as well. They also have Florida as a top 10 team. I want to dive into that conversation as well before we do. And as always, the Florida Gator fans, talking this team over the last couple of weeks has been really fun, right? To close out to the 2024 season, what they've done on the recruiting trail, what they're doing in the portal. I've had a blast. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with it. If you all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's start with Harrison Bailey briefly. Talk about this Florida team potentially being a top 10 team in the country going into 2025. Now, Harrison Bailey, when you've seen Harrison Bailey play, it's not been horrible, right? We saw him start in that bowl game for Louisville against Washington, 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. And again, is Harrison Bailey a world beater at the quarterback spot? No, that's why he's kind of been a career backup during his time in college football. 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions, a 63% completion percentage. When Harrison Bailey's been on the football field, to me, he's significantly a better quarterback right now than what Florida probably has on their roster. And the one name you might point to is a guy like Tramel Jones. Look, I like Tramel Jones. We broke him down when he flipped his commitment to Florida. Tramel Jones got banged up in his senior season at high school. He's going to be an early enrollee true freshman. Tramel Jones could be a solid quarterback too, but do you want to have to rely on a true freshman quarterback being that quarterback too, coming off an injury that he missed a decent chunk of his senior year? It's probably not ideal. And there'll be some Florida fans saying, well, DJ Lagway turned out to be pretty good as a true freshman. Yeah, but DJ Lagway and Tramel Jones are kind of two different guys. And I like Tramel Jones. That just tells you what I think about DJ Lagway. two different kind of cats in terms of their physical traits, especially year one coming out of high school. So one, Harrison Bailey, when he's played, has shown that he's not a great college football quarterback, but a solid quarterback. And that's kind of what you're looking for. Like if you're Florida, you know you're not going to bring in an elite quarterback to come up back up DJ Lagway, because if they're an any good quarterback, they're probably going and starting for a team across the country. Number two, the experience. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Harrison Bailey and adding him to the quarterback room is better for DJ Lagway's development than a guy like Deshaun Purdy, because Deshaun Purdy, much higher upside than a guy like Harrison Bailey. He's still a young quarterback that is still learning the ropes of the college football level as well. Harrison Bailey, he's a pro's pro. He's been around a lot of offenses, has been in the college football landscape for a very long time, and although not extremely experienced, he's been experienced in terms of how much he's been around college football. And I think that matters when you're trying to get the best out of DJ Lagway. And I think that argument of, hey, who's the ideal backup quarterback that brings out the best and helps the best with DJ Lagway's development, that's probably just as, if not more important than getting a quarterback that can play at quarterback too. Because let's just be quite frank, if DJ Lagway gets banged up for any significant amount of time, Florida's probably not competing for national championship. Harrison Bailey bringing out the best of DJ Lagway is another really strong argument for Harrison Bailey. And so the way I look at it, you get the opportunity. This is a young quarterback room. I mean, DJ Lagway, Warner, Tramel Jones, it's young. Do you want to add a guy that's been around the sport for a while? Harrison Bailey, that guy checks a lot of those boxes. And as a Michigan fan, we're in a very similar situation, right? Michigan was trying to get a transfer portal quarterback to come in. Well, selling a transfer portal quarterback to come in and compete with Bryce Underwood is awfully difficult to do. Exactly where Florida was with DJ Lagway. If Harrison Bailey wants to come and he's on the same page with the staff in terms of, hey, I'm coming in as almost like a player's coach, so to speak, and really helping with the DJ Lagway development, that might make more sense than bringing in a young, talented quarterback like Deshaun Purdy. Number two, and a very controversial talking point here, is Florida top 10 team. And I think this is when you got to pull out the depth chart. Is Florida a top 10 team heading into 2025? Even some of the Florida fans said that I was a little too high on Florida. And look, I understand where you're coming from, where this is my argument about Florida being a top 10 team is this is a team that checks a lot of boxes in terms of what it looks like on paper. What you're looking for now is if Florida can put it together in 2025. In terms of purely on paper, if this team can play to the talent that I think's on this roster, I very well think they can be a top 10 team. Now, do they put it all together under Billy Napier in the 2025 year? That's the question that we're going to find out in a couple of months. But you start looking at this depth chart and say there's a ton of reasons to be really optimistic about Florida, right? DJ Lagway. How many quarterbacks are you taking over DJ Lagway across the country going into 2025? I don't know how many there are. And what we saw from DJ Lagway in 2024 as a true freshman, one, just another year of experience being the guy, you kind of know he's going to get better, right? And keep in mind, for the last 12 months leading up to the college football season, DJ Lagway was running with the twos. You know, Graham Mertz was the quote-unquote starting quarterback coming out of spring practice and fall camp. Now all those quarterback one reps are going to DJ Lagway. Now, secondly, look, DJ Lagway had a bummed hamstring the whole time. The whole time he was playing in the late half of the season, kind of taking away one of the best assets of his football game, and that is the athleticism that he has. So you're getting a more experienced DJ Lagway, who's had more reps with the ones in spring practice and fall camp. Also a healthier DJ Lagway who can utilize his athleticism. That's a quarterback that can be dangerous. You look at the wide receiver room, you bring in J. Michael Sturdivant, you have five-star Dallas Wilson coming in, you have five-star Vernell Brown coming in. The wide receivers and running backs are going to be there around him. You return 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen from the 2024 season, a unit that started playing some really good football down the stretch in 2024. You look on the offensive side of the football and say, difference maker at quarterback. I think a very talented wide receiver and running back room with an experienced, continuity-filled offensive line. We're checking boxes for Florida on the offensive side of the football. Now you go to the defensive side of the football and you're returning just an incredible amount of production. right? It starts on the defensive line. Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks, Jamari Lyons coming back from injury. George Gums might emerge as the best pass rusher on this team. LJ McCray going into year 2. That front 7, when you say the defensive line and the linebackers, looks really good, along with the secondary that's returning a lot of guys that were playing a lot of football towards the end of 2024. It's kind of a mix here. When you're evaluating teams in the offseason, trying to project, all right, what teams you think are going to be dangerous in 2024, there's a couple of things you look at. One, quarterback play, right? Do they have ideal quarterback play? Florida very realistically could have some of the best quarterback play that we see in the country. Okay, what does the offense look around them? I think a lot of talent. Okay, what does the offensive line look like? We're turning 4 out of your 5 offensive linemen, so you're getting 1. Jake Slaughter, also you get guys that played well. Jake Slaughter was an All-American, and then you get the continuity of 4 of those guys playing a lot of football together. Then you go to the defensive side of the football and say you're pretty much running it back with the guys that we saw in November 2024. I mean, so 1, all these guys are getting better as they get a year older. Number 2, a lot of these guys have played a ton of football together, so the continuity is there. When I look at Florida, talent's there, continuity's there at the important positions on the roster, on paper. You very well could argue that Florida's a top 10 team. Now, are they going to be a top 10 team in the fall? That's the question mark that's going to decide Billy Napier's future down there in Gainesville, Florida. That's kind of my take on it. I wanted to talk Harrison Bailey, wanted to talk about just an early season outlook of this football team. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.